Flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, can we have the secretary perform a roll call attendance, please?
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Okay. All the board members should have received the minutes from the February 3rd meeting.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay. Our first item on the agenda this evening is discussion regarding Iglesia Cristiana addition.
Good evening, sirs. One thing that I'd like to start with is to clarify on the agenda, the two-story addition to the church is not really for classrooms. It's for community rooms that are going to be used as a Bible classes, like work for children, but it's not, they are not really classrooms, which will make it a school. So we have to start with that we don't have that. We received the comments that there were some deficiencies on the plans, the latest set of plans that we submit, that they were mainly, that I'd like to start with, is with the zoning analysis, setbacks and so on. So I'm going to start with that. Unfortunately, on the set that we submit, we don't have that. We just, because the property is so large and the property is large and the addition is not really that big in comparison to the lot, we failed to indicate that on the original plans. But now we have the calculations here. I could show you what we have. And I'm going to start with the minimum lot area. We complied, we have 1.43 acres, which is more than they require. The minimum lot width that is required is 50 feet. We have 143 feet on the front, and we have 171 feet in the back. It's a true lot. The minimum lot depth that is required is 80 feet. We have 458 feet of depth, the depth of the lot. The minimum setback frontage is 50 feet, and we have 143.44. This is for the HMN district, which you should know. The minimum front yard that is required is 75 feet. We have 182 feet. The minimum side yard that we had that is required is 12 and 5 feet. We have 51 feet and 52 feet. And I understand that basically because we have a church, we have community facilities, we have to comply with, I think it was told that it has to be twice what is required for a residential building. So instead of 12, we have 51 and 53. The minimum rear yard is 25 feet, and we have 78 feet. The maximum building height is 2.5 or 35 feet. We have 35 feet without counting the steeple. Of course, it's a permitted structure in a church. It could be as high as it can, so not an issue. The maximum building coverage, that it cannot be more than 25%, based on that we calculate, I think it's less than 14%. So we are below what the maximum required. The minimum floor area ratio, that has to be 0.5, we only have at 0.11. The maximum impervious surface that's drives is a maximum is 50%, and we only have 0.26%. The minimum landscape open space, I didn't indicate that. The minimum parking setback, they don't have, on the HMA, they don't indicate that. We have, the front setback is 50 feet, and the side yards, on one side we have 10 feet, on the other side we have 0. It's really right on the property line. So these I'm going to add it to the unfortunately we don't have it on those plans, but that's something that we like to add, and I think it's important that but at least I want you to see, even though it was not on the plan that we submitted, indicates clearly that they are in full compliance, more than enough compliance with the requirements. Now we have the comments from from Paggy Engineering, which is one of the things, so we have the issue with the septic tank. The septic tank, it was installed there, it was a septic tank there forever. They replaced it. Unfortunately, there are not records on the Department of Health or permits or things like that. But it was, they will have some specs on the septic tank. The septic tank has been working perfectly for the past, what they had before and what they have now, for the past 100 years or more. And one thing that they, is as required, they have a clean the tank like every 6 months or something. But we like to explore that. Of course, it's something, that we want this church to be forever. So it's something that it has to be explored and it has to be addressed. But we want it to be addressed on a point that that this don't hinder the approval of a site plan. And I'm going to go back to that a little bit later. So we will continue finding out about the septic tank and what it has to be done. But keep in mind that the fact that we're doing this extension in the rear is not increasing the amount of occupants on the church. It's the same amount. The church is not getting bigger, just the accessory use they are necessary. One of the things that I have to point out now, everything that they want to do on this extra space is happening on the basement.
So have you had that conversation with the health department regarding that? That's the bigger question, because prior to us giving an approval, we're going to need something from the health department,
So Pastor Reddy, we have a letter from the Department of Health. I believe you may have a copy of it.
Can you use the microphone?
Yeah, speaking to, yeah.
Yeah, we did hear from Dan Keeler at the Department of Health. He sent a letter in December where he indicated that if there's no change in use, they would be okay with it unless you wanted them to further, give an approval for the existing system.
Let me, can I take a quick look at it?
So we did see this, and so the question is, the health department should be the one making determination on whether or not this constitutes a change in use or an additional use.
Yeah, what we have here is just, this is a standard seeker letter, just that they're just stating that they have the right to ask for more information.
And if there is a change in use,
they have no objection to us being lead agency for the project.
Right.
Yeah, so there's really no change in, so you still have to go back to the health department.
And would that hold up the approval of
You need to talk to them, because it sounds like there's no septic approval currently, correct?
Well, we have a septic system.
Right, you have a tank that was put in.
we don't have anything that says it's approved.
Right.
I mean, we have used it for the past 10 years that we're in the building, and there's been no issues, and it's cleaned every 6 months.
Right, but you're putting an addition on the building. So I think you need to get the health department to weigh in, because that's within their purview for the septic system. We have no authority over that. So I think you need to have that discussion with them and at least get us some type of conceptual letter from them that says, they're okay with the way it is, or, they're going to look for some type of modifications, just to ensure that there's no, that there's not going to be an overflow of the system that's there, because it sounds like currently it just goes into a holding tank and then they pump it every 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
We did explain that.
Like Christian was saying earlier, that I was thinking about, there's a couple on Route 9 that are like that, where they don't have a septic system, they just have a tank, but they do have the alarms on it. Like if it fills up, there's an alarm that goes on and shuts off the water.
I'm thinking that this system has some sort of outlet, right?
It must. We just don't have
Because if it's
the
only every
drawings.
6 months that you pump, I would imagine you're using more than that. I mean, every 6 months, 1,000 gallons every 6 months. That's a very small amount. So I mean, you could be, but so you don't have any records on, I mean, you had the septic tank, and you said it was just replaced or installed last year. Was there any information on what happens after the septic tank, where that is discharged to? If there's, some seepage pits on site or absorption field, any sort of
Yes,
on-site
as you
system?
said, there must be, but we don't have any drawings or any specifics on that. But again, it's being used, for the past 10 years. We did explain, we're not increasing the number of congregants. We would love to, but we just add in space so that what takes place in the basement, we could now do in a more proper area and break up our children. We have 30 children every Sunday, screaming in a very small space in the basement. And, the community is working together to try to provide better space. So even though we will have bathrooms there so they don't have to walk all the way down to the basement to the bathroom, it's the same number of people, it's the same services. We're not adding any more services. We're having the same service. It's just instead of being in the basement, they'll be in these rooms.
But at the end of the day, we still want to make sure that the system that you guys have is functioning and brought up to code. And we don't have any information on that. We would like to see the project go through, but when it comes to on-site water treatment systems, you're talking about sewage, and we don't even know if it's overflowing
And so there's also.
and where it goes.
Where is it discharged? Where is it actually going?
If you get them to verify that the system doesn't have to get updated,
That's cool.
See,
Yeah,
if you
that's-
think, even if you go on the premise that we are not increasing the amount of congregants, so that means that we have, what we have on the church right now will be.
but you're adding bathrooms.
But
No, we are in bathrooms, but we are not adding we are not adding congregants, we are not adding more people. So if we go on that, then the septic system that we have now is no good. So maybe we should close the church and don't do anything because it's not compliant, because the amount of people is not changing. So the thing that, see, the issue that we have, now we have this use in the basement. By the way, the entrance to the basement is about 6 foot high. To enter the basement, the door is about 6 foot high. There is no handicap access, there is one bathroom there. So there is almost like an immediate necessity to get this extra space. I know the septic tank may not be up to 100% to code now, and I know we don't have, whoever installed the system, they should have filed it with the building, they should have filed it, but this item, whatever it is, I think it could be corrected maybe prior COO, prior certificate of occupancy, prior final approval from the building department. These things that they go to the whole department, but we could get maybe, because we have an existing condition that is a non-conformity, it is not self-created, that maybe we could create some kind of waiver that would allow the pastor to get some kind of site plan approved. By the way, we have, the way this is going to be constructed, the pastor, they don't have any money to get a big contractor and start the construction tomorrow and this. No. Everything is done through donations. Even the construction is going to be done by donation. They have a construction company that's going to give up the labor to do the church, the material. So it's very important at this moment. And that will be the hardship, that at this moment we get some kind of, that he could tell the people that are going to need money, we have a site plan approval, we have something. But if you go out, we may go to the health department could take 6 months to give us an answer on it, if we did get an answer.
But we can't overlook the fact of waste
I know,
and sewage.
I understand your point,
Yeah.
but I'm just telling you what it happens on this side.
You guys are trying to correct things to make it safer there for you guys, but at the same sense, there's still, you're talking about sewage that should be just as important of bringing up safety-wise.
Right. Even keeping in mind that it's been like that for the past 10 years when they changed the system, and 100 years ago, then when the church was built.
That doesn't make it right, though.
It doesn't make it right, but it's been, but it's a non-conforming use. It's a, could call it grandfathering. I don't know if we could call it grandfathering, because if whatever we are into church is not even, we are not increasing, as I said, repeat that, we're increasing the amount of congregants. The amount of space that we're increasing in terms of area.
But you're modifying the system.
So
Well,
maybe
not
if we eliminate
these
the
modifying
bathrooms,
uses.
would that make any difference?
Can I just jump in here? We know that you're not increasing the size of the congregation or the intensity of the use. And with respect to a lot of things that are within our purview, that is how we're moving forward with your review. Things like parking, right? You're not increasing the intensity of the use, and we understand that. But as far as the septic system, that's not under our purview. That's under the purview of the health department. And so it's not up to us to say in respect to that whether or not this is an increase in use. That's up to the health department.
Can I ask you one question? If we have, let's say we extend the church, for this community, we move what we have in the basement now, and we're going to put it in the back there. If we don't put any bathroom, will that be an issue?
I would ask Christian.
Say that you would keep the addition, just not have the
No
bathrooms?
bathrooms. We do no bathrooms. We keep people using the same bathroom.
The issue is that you haven't provided any information other than what you think is a septic tank on the property. For your benefit and the benefit of the congregants and the residents of the town,
Yeah.
the planning board needs to get additional information on your system. Whether that's from the health department, I think that it should come from the health department. They should opine on whether they believe that what you're proposing could potentially be an increase in demand. If they say that it's not an increase in demand, we would still want to know what type of system you have. Right now, it's not clear if it's a pump and haul where it just goes into a septic tank and gets pumped and hauled off site. If that's the case, we need to know that definitively. If it's not the case, we need to know that definitively.
Yeah.
So you need to know if there's an absorption field or a dry well somewhere on the site. How do you know that it's not right where your addition is proposed? How do you know that the dry wells that you're proposing are not going to conflict with it? So these are all things that need to be worked out and figured out. At this stage, the health department will be responsive. Dan Keeler, who you mentioned, is the engineer who would be looking at this. He will be responsive. They may not. You mentioned at some point that they don't have any records. I was going to say start with Dan, FOIL their records, see what kind of records they have. So they're typically good with record keeping and getting back to you.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but-
I 100% understand that. The thing is the timing. So the problem is that we have to then talk to the health department and then probably mention the health department. That
We
need
brought this up at the last
priority.
meeting. We brought this up at the last meeting,
No,
and
no.
we were told that you were working with the health department and with.
We got a letter, and that's what they tell you. There are no
Okay.
records. That's what they told. And the company that did the septic tank, they don't have any records. So it's not really. Unfortunately, we are with the hands tied. We don't know.
So there may need to be, if you have no records of the work that was done and the health department has no records, there may need to be some investigation into your system, either camera the pipe, maybe some exploratory excavation to find out where your system is. So, and that's critical information that you guys would
We
need to
know
have.
where it is, right? It's-
You know where the septic tank is.
Yes.
we did-
Then what happens after the septic tank?
Yeah.
We don't know if there's any sort of absorption field or.
We show something on the drawings. We indicate
You show a septic tank on the
Yes.
drawings, and that's it. So if that's all that you have, then then what you have is called a pump and haul system, where it doesn't go into the ground. It's not a typical on-site sewage disposal system. It's just a temporary holding tank. So, and if it's just a temporary holding tank, then there needs to be some precautions added if there aren't some now. Meaning there needs to be an alarm on it, so in the case of an overflow, and potentially an automatic shutoff to your water, so that if there is an overflow, it doesn't continue to overflow if there's continued to be water usage. But that stuff is regulated by the health department. So right now, there's still questions, and this board can't act until those questions are
Okay,
answered.
another question is this: what happens? I'm just saying something. Okay, we don't find information about the existing septic tank and all that, and then we say on the site plan, propose new septic system. Will that get us the approval?
You'd have to then go get a new septic system designed.
But does it have to be approved? The site plan doesn't have to be approved. The site, that is not going to hinder the approval of the site plan if we say that we're going to provide a new system. I think we could get the approval and base it, and we don't get final approval of COO on the new system. But then in that case, we don't, that issue that we have, it disappears as an issue because now we're proposing a new
The
system.
board has in the past granted conditional approval where
could do that.
demonstrating health department approval was a condition of final approval. Typically, they would do that when there's sufficient evidence that an approval was likely to happen.
Yep.
So there would have to be some information either put on the plan where you guys did soil testing and showing a reasonable design, or some initial feedback from the health department, basically indicating that there was no significant roadblocks to an approval.
So maybe
That-
that's what we could do.
That's a much longer process, what you just described, versus,
No, because they don't, no, it's a longer process when to get this septic tank approved by the health department.
Right.
But it won't, I don't think we'll make a longer process to get the site plan approved, because you don't really need the septic tank, the health department approval to get the site plan approved on road.
we need to be confident that an approval
Will be obtained.
is likely.
And I
Right.
know we have a property that is 1.43 acres.
That has cemetery on it and parking.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
but-
So I
maybe we
think
should
we,
just
I
give
think,
them
so
a list that has got
bottom line is on this issue, you have to reach out to the health department.
Okay.
Reach out to them, have discussions with them, get something in writing from them, whether or not they're going to require something or not, or if they give you the waiver, maybe they'll give you the waiver and they'll ask you to put in some additional equipment into the building, just to safeguard to make sure that the tank doesn't overflow. So, I mean, so that's the one issue, okay? So we need to get that addressed, all right?
Then we have,
So why don't we, all right, so, I mean, you want to continue through the letter?
Yes,
I guess you were
yes,
going
yes.
through the engineer's letter, so why
yeah,
don't we?
the other thing that we have is the dry wells. Also, the dry wells is indicated we're going to have a dry well. I was wondering if we could provide the detail, but is there any way that we could leave that for the dry wells and the piping to the dry wells to do the stormwater disposal? Could that be part of the drawings that we're filed with the building department for approval, for construction approval? They have to be here?
Yes. That's part of this approval. Yeah.
They say something about the driveway. We don't have the driveway in the back anymore. You know, they calling revised plan no longer special parking in the rear. However, proposed addition conflicts with the existing driveway. Remember, the existing driveway in the back is going to be overtaken by the extension.
So what we're asking is, your plan just shows a box for an addition over the existing driveway
But we
line.
don't need the driveway.
So the plans need to indicate what's happening with that driveway.
No,
If it's
they
being
just go in the
restored,
parking lot. Yeah, it's going to be eliminated.
then the plans should be revised to reflect what's happening. So if there's going to be areas of driveway that are removed and restored, that should be called out on the plan with details and specifications on how that's going to happen. Is it going to be seeded and mulched and be lawn? Is it going to be landscaped? Is the driveway going to be relocated? Will there be sidewalk? You're proposing fire escapes from the building to where? Will there be sidewalks to provide?
Sidewalk, there will be a walkway.
But nothing is shown on the plan. So
That driveway portion that stays on the side, because remember, there is the access one they have on the left side of the building. We have the handicap ramp, and we have the only handicap ramp to go to the community facility, to the community area and the office. So that is a paved area, so people can walk on that area.
So that just needs to be indicated. Right now, you're still showing a driveway underneath the building and
Yeah, but it
no
will
other
be,
changes.
okay, so we just have to
Just need to
change the name
clarify. It's just clarifying the plan.
No
And if you
problem.
are changing something, any improvements, whether it's removing asphalt or providing new pavement or new sidewalk or just creating lawn, that should be detailed.
Okay, no problem. So you have to just indicate there's no walkway, no driveway anymore. Okay, the issue with the dry well, that you need the calculation for the dry well. That dry well, by the way, that is only for the new part of the building. It's not for the existing part of the building. We are not providing, we have the parking is existing, that is going to remain as it is. There is no dry wells there and all that, so that is not changing.
Okay.
The only thing will be for the new extension, for the rear extension. Okay, so that's on one letter. Here, so we have, okay, again, on the letter from H&H, we have the calculations, which we have now on the drawings, that we fully comply with this.
Are you going to sorry. Can you add, I mean, I understand that those callouts are on the plans. Can you add them to the table?
Yeah, of course, of course. No, no, no.
And not only to the building that you have shown, but you have a number of sheds on the property.
Yeah.
They have their own, okay, they have their own setback requirements.
Yeah.
And if the shed is below a certain size, it has a shorter setback requirement than a shed above a certain size. But those are all to the main building. And the sheds will also have to comply with their setback requirements, or they will need variances. I understand that they're already there, but that they were put up without a permit.
There's one shed that was put up on permit. I think the old shed is existing. There's only one that they bought in Home Depot, whatever, and they have a small one.
Can you
But one was
identify which one is existing and
Yeah.
which one is
The large one
intended to
is
be
existing.
legalized?
The large one is existing, and the new one is the small one?
Okay, but the question, I believe, on the sheds was, are they legally existing? Was there a permit taken out for the
So I don't know how
shed?
old one is. If it was built before 1963, it predates zoning, but it's not even called out on the assessor's records as being there. So
Okay.
we have and there's no permits. And then the bigger question is, we need to know the size and setbacks, but also what are you building onto one that you're making bigger?
The storage, remember, we don't have a storage.
I know, but you have to put that on the plan.
Yes, okay.
So then, and give us the size you want to have when it's completed, so we know what size it will be, and then the setback to the side, so we can verify whether or not you need a variance.
Hopefully not. We'll
Hopefully
take them
not.
out. You will take them out tomorrow if you need a variance.
Oh,
Remember,
boy.
we-
Well,
no variance. We hopefully will have to go for a variance. Okay, the issue with the lighting, the pastor provide us with, we're going to add, we have some information about the lighting that is provided with the card, the amount of
Yeah, yeah.
the lighting, the amount of lumens, yes, sorry.
So, yeah.
The lighting, so we're going to put part of the plan by indicate the lights and the amount of lumens. There is only one light that is really illuminating the parking lot. Remember, most of the other lights are illuminating the walkways and the entrance to the church.
So those are so what you're doing is you're just listing out the lights with their,
Wattage.
okay, so what they're, okay. But I mean, obviously the one big one that's real bright, that one just has to go away. I mean, we know that. So, but I think what they're looking for, is a photometric plan, showing what the lighting level, showing that you're compliant with the zoning code. Okay?
Okay.
So that would be measured in foot candles. You would have an image of the site, the locations of the lights, and the foot candles associated with that lighting. That'll give us an idea of what the lighting is, if it's code compliant, and if it's not, we'll have to modify it.
Yeah. There was one issue with some lights that they were outside the property, they were removed and relocated, so we don't have those lights anymore.
Okay.
And there was also something with the report,
I had a comment regarding seeker. It's a type 2 action that simplifies things. The seeker review is concluded.
okay.
Something that came up in our discussion earlier, though, there is a ramp. It sounds like you're going to maintain the section of the road that loops around the building as a walkway, so that people can access those entrances, those fire escapes, those ramps. I understand that there's nothing changing about the parking, but do you have a situation with handicap parking spaces? Is there an area where you encourage those people to park to provide them access? An idea would be to reserve some spaces in the section of the driveway that loops around the building that would go up to the ramp. I'm not sure what your current policy is and whether or not this addition and the change to the road looping around the back would modify that. But if there are improvements associated with it that you would like to pursue, we'll need to see those on the plans.
Yeah, we have an existing handicap area ramp on the left side to go to the church, and we put an extra one that is going to go on the back, on the addition. And the handicap parking is actually, wherever you are, is on the front building, but we could indicate it on the floor plan. Some handicap spaces, they don't have to be by the entrance, they could be any place that they have the proper dimension and all that. So.
Okay.
Right, but you have to show the handicap parking.
Yes, we will
You have to
indicate.
show the handicap parking and the accessible route from the parking to the accessible entrance to the building.
Yes, we have that, yes, that's
So you're gonna, okay, so you'll put that on the,
on the plan, yes, no
okay.
problem.
all right, one other thing I know we discussed, we had a little discussion earlier regarding the cemetery. Currently, the cemetery is not kind of delineated on the site. There's no fencing or anything around it. We're just, with the addition getting closer to the cemetery, and then now we're gonna have,
fence.
walkways, other things around the back, to provide some type of, delineation for where the cemetery is to ensure that nothing encroaches within it.
Yeah,
going
that's something that
forward.
we provide. I don't know if it's clearly indicated on the drawings, but definitely we're going to put a fence around it to protect the sacred site, these are
Right, right, right.
cemeteries. so
It
we
could be a
want
nice
people to
little
work-
split rail fence that are cheap and.
No, we could put a nice fence. We could put a beautiful fence around it.
Yeah. But,
I guess
yeah,
our concern is with the building moving closer to, particularly during construction, but also in normal operations. Now that everything is moving closer to the graveyard, it's very old, and there isn't a stone wall or something marking the beginning of it, that things may encroach into it.
There
There's
is
a
an
fence.
existing fence, telephone poles that have been there for a long time.
Okay.
And remember, before there was a driveway, but nothing happens. Now it's not going to be driveways, we only have a building, so nothing is really going to happen. But we want to, as part of the embellishment of the property and all that, that's something that we'll be doing anyway, so. Yeah.
Are they supposed to be maintaining the actual
I would check,
cemetery?
This-
probably.
yeah, the cemetery, I mean,
That's
I-
always a property.
It looks
Yeah.
bad.
I
Right?
mean, it falls under, New York State has cemetery law, I guess, that, you're supposed to do certain maintenance on the cemetery.
Yeah.
That looked into, I don't know, I don't know all the details of it, but I think you need
It might be in
to.
the deed, but we'll look into it for what legality.
But I think the pastor look on the records on the, you went to try to check, but there's no record.
Yeah, we can't find any records, but when you say it looks bad, what do you, because we mow?
Some of the stones fallen over.
Okay, yeah, I mean.
You're a church, it's a cemetery, you should be taking
I
care
mean,
of it.
it's,
Yeah.
maybe the stones can be put back up right and just clean it up a little.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that have fallen over, the whole structure over time has just given way, so, has broken, so it's not as simple as stand it up, it's
Standing
not
it up,
gonna
some
stand
of them
up.
are actually-
It's better to leave it the way it is and let the time do whatever it has to do with the tombstones. Rather than try to fix it. I don't think it would be appropriate to take a stone, fix it and make it look pretty. I don't think it would be appropriate.
But we'll look into what the requirements are for your,
Yeah, if it's required,
what you have to do.
we'll do what we have to do, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
all right. Anybody else, any board members have any other questions or concerns?
No.
No?
If they fix the list, they got, get it on
Yeah.
the plans, they'll be fine.
All right, so you still have a bunch of items to get addressed, to get put onto the plans. Basically, everything's outlined within the planner and the engineer's letter. So I think, you have to kind of just follow up with the different things that need to get addressed and then resubmit, and then we can move forward from there. Okay?
And then issue the health department, so that's something that,
Yep. Okay.
What's the, how do we get comments back sooner, because we got some comments today.
I understand that, yeah, that's something I have to talk about with staff, but normal procedure is that the comments should be submitted for public the Wednesday before the meeting. So that's normally been the process. I know that sometimes that kind of has been due to other constraints, it gets pushed back sometimes, but that was always the standard, was to have it the Wednesday before the meeting. That we'll work on. Again, but when the comments come out, it's not for you to do a quick turnaround and do a resubmission either. Because even if you do make that resubmission and you get the comments on Wednesday and then you make the submission on Friday, there's most likely you're not going to get it, it's not going to be re-reviewed by staff prior to the meeting. Okay, just, keep that in mind as well. But when you do make, maybe prior to the next submission, if you do have any questions, I'll leave this up to the rest of the board. Should we allow the applicant to be able to reach out to the engineer and the planner to address any of the open items that they're currently out there?
I'm comfortable with that.
You comfortable with that? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll allow you to have direct contact with them to, to go over these items, so that you can come back with a much better, set of plans, so that the next time you come back in, it may be that much closer to getting an approval at that point. Okay? So we'll put the ball in your court to kind of, everything's basically upon your time frame at this point. All right?
We appreciate that.
Okay. All right. So if you have, is there anything else you guys have for this evening?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda this evening is Bettini Fuels amended site plan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, for the record, Taylor Palmer with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader on behalf of the applicant, Wappinger Airport Drive LLC, or as the chairman mentioned, Bettini. Tonight I'm joined by Rich Williams of Insight Engineering, the project engineer. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, while we're setting up the easel here with our site plans, we are before you this evening in connection with an application for amended site plan where we're proposing to add warehousing component to the existing operation at the property. Before I do turn it over to Rich, I want to make sure to steal all of his talking points. As far as the review of the site plan and related analyses that were submitted, I did just want to give you all a quick background about the proposal and the project, as this is our first meeting for the project. As is more fully detailed in our February 3rd submission to your board, and as we discussed actually with town staff back in November of last year, we are proposing to install a 10,000 square foot asphalt storage pad, a yard hydrant along the northern property line, and a more centralized portion of the premises that really abuts Tri-State Filter HVAC supplies at 72 Airport Drive, and as the board mentioned during its work session, proximate to where the cell tower is on the site plan. The storage pad would be installed just to the east of the existing improvements, which again is an existing office building and parking, and it's about 140 feet from the residential development to the south of the premises, and we actually have some visuals that show how far setback we are from those locations. And as also mentioned during our work session, there's this substantial berm and topography that helps with this site in setting down these improvements. The property is northeast of the Hudson Valley Regional Airport and is currently improved by the existing Bettini Fuel Transportation Terminal, which includes a paved truck parking area, as well as a 2,400 square foot building for office and maintenance purposes, and then, as we mentioned, the Verizon cell tower that's on the site. It's about a 30-plus acre, 33-acre site, and it's presently classified in your airport industry zoning district, and there's a host of other uses in the area, residential, but there's also commercial, recreational. There's actually a veterinary office. We have painters and trades, HVAC. You can get your windshield replaced. It's a lot hanging out around us. The storage pad, as mentioned, would be used by the applicant for warehousing of empty residential refuse cans and empty roll-off dumpsters prior to the empty refuse cans and dumpsters being transferred to the off-site residential and commercial customers for short and long-term use. So again, the primary storage is for these empty residential containers on the site. We have proposed certain landscaping in addition to that, which is existing on the site. And again, the topography certainly helps us in that aspect, and then Rich will certainly speak to how we're sort of built into the existing topography there. There was some discussion during your work session about the access. There's a 12-foot paved driveway extension that would be installed, so I think, as Rich can highlight on the plan, the existing traveled way, that was to a well that's on the property, which is up the hill, and then, of course, there's the secondary access that goes to the cell tower. Lastly, but not leastly, just procedurally, we are an unlisted action pursuant to seeker. And so with that, I'll turn to Rich to walk you through the formal site plan.
Okay.
Good evening. For your record, Rich Williams, Insight Engineering. Just slide this back so I can talk at the same time. So as Taylor mentioned, 33.44 acre site, AI zone. What you see, and just to get you oriented, north is up on this plan. You have Airport Drive, Don Bosco Boulevard. We have the existing 2011 site plan for a 2,400 square foot building, which has 800 square feet of office and 1,600 square feet of maintenance shop and associated parking. The septic area is located just to the south of the existing development. There is an existing stormwater pollution prevention plan that was approved, which consisted of swales, drainage collection system, and a pocket pond being located right here on the property. We did see comments come in from Mr. Andrews. We will do an evaluation of the existing system, and we can add that supplement into the SWIP, and it's a fair comment. What you see is we have a cell tower just to our northeast. As part of a previous application, you can see the surrounding uses. To the north, we have some more industrial commercial. As you move east and south, we have residential. We have Hackensack Heights Road located to our south. What we're proposing to do is construct a 10,000 square foot asphalt storage pad, as Taylor mentioned. It's going to be located in this portion of the site. Just to provide you with some distances to our neighbors, we are between 320 to 350 feet from the property line. That's 320 feet from a berm I'll talk to you about in a couple of minutes, and 350 feet from the pad to our nearest neighbor. And if you take a look at the houses, we're about 511 and 550 feet to the closest houses to our south. In designing this asphalt storage pad, a couple of things. It's a simple pad for us, but no simple thing doesn't warrant its thought. First, we wanted to try and balance the earthwork. So what we did was we set this up as a cut to fill, and we set the asphalt pad into the hillside, which again allowed us to do the cut to fill to try and balance the earthwork, while at the same time allowed us to set the elevation of the pad lower into the ground to assist with screening. In addition to that, we did respect the previous approvals, recognition of a berm to the neighbor, and I'll just point that out. It's right there on the site plan. As mentioned during the work session, we are farther to the north, but we also thought a berm was warranted, just to kind of continue the theme of what was previously approved. We do have about a 5-foot tall berm. Line of sights, we believe we're far enough away that there'll be plenty of screening. And, you know, if there are comments to add additional screening, we're happy to work with the board and staff to accommodate that. Driveway, as you heard Taylor mention, there is an existing dirt trail that comes up that was used to access, well, I believe it was used to access the well site. We didn't want to go to 7%, so we designed this commercial driveway at 10%, in part because it is very infrequently used. So there'll be no parking. Trucks will be parked off-site. They'll come to pick up a dumpster or drop it off. We expect that there'll be many days where there's no trips to the site at all as part of this use. But on a maximum, it would only be 1 to 2 trucks per day. So to that end, there's no on-site parking, there's no storage of trucks. This is just about the storage of the containers and the trash cans. So with the minimal use, we looked at grading in a 7% driveway, but over several hundred feet, that actually lowers you into the ground even more. As we started to dig that deep into the hill, it became tough to do a cut to fill without expanding the grading pad. So by using a 10% driveway, we're able to get a little higher in elevation and get that earthwork set so that we can balance, because again, you know, as site designers, that's a goal we try to achieve whenever possible. We have provided a stormwater pollution prevention plan. As an initial cut, we did not provide any practices that are prohibited in what's called a hotspot use. We received, obviously, Mr. Andrews' comments, and we have a little bit more homework to do with respect to how this might be interpreted under the code, and we're happy to continue that conversation with them. And if it does warrant additional treatment because it's a non-stormwater discharge, we'll explore what that means and work through a solution.
Okay.
That being said, happy to answer questions.
Any board members have any questions with this?
Refer to the professionals.
You want to start with the professionals, all right? Well, go ahead. All right, well, do you want to start, John, or?
Well, I can start. He used my name in vain a couple times.
You have the bigger.
And I think he did indicate that they would verify that the improvements that exist, both the approved site plan and the stormwater, that they are essentially what they were supposed to be and what you were planning on tying into. I don't think that's unreasonable. The maximum grade, I understand their argument. I think that's a fine argument, and as long as you make it in writing and justify it, my own analysis probably reached the same thing, and I would recommend that the board grant the necessary waiver, because it is an infrequent use, and it does add to the balance of the site, and it actually helps with the stormwater, because it gets the stormwater up closer to where it needs to be. The washout area is probably my biggest concern. And as long as they're willing to explore that and come up with means and methods of perhaps treating it or eliminating it or screening it, adding a pre-screening so that heavily soiled boxes aren't washed in this manner, but this is for other, there are ways to do it, but again, we would ask some sort of written definition, written proposal to the board. And then lastly, a lot of the details on the stormwater plan are technical, and they went about 95% thinking that to get comments, so we're going to really button up the last 10% now, because they got to undo some things and redo some things. So as long as they're good with it, I think we can move ahead. I don't think there's anything that's out of the ordinary. And now having heard their rationale for the driveway, it makes things a little more explainable and a little more understandable.
Okay.
So my first comment, the parking calculation table appears to address the existing use. It doesn't appear to include the proposed use. That being said, you have a number of employee spaces. It is technically a warehouse use, but it's not clear based on this whether existing employees are going to be handling that. It seems to be a very low use. So some explanation of what that operation is in relation to parking, that the existing parking area can accommodate it. I would also just include that use into the parking calculation. I think that you're probably overparked. If for whatever reason additional parking is required by code, I think that this is a very good case to make for land bank parking as opposed to increasing. But I would like to see that updated. It also made me curious whether or not the bulk table had been updated to include. Okay, so just wanted to verify that the bulk table is showing proposed conditions with this proposed project and not left over, in which case, no shocker, it is a very large site. They more than comply with all of their bulk regulations. They discussed the existing topography of the site, the existing screening that was provided at the time that the transportation terminal was put in. They are quite a ways away from most of the residential areas, and there is natural topography between those. That being said, do you want to?
We have a secret site section that we
Yes.
have right now.
So there it is. So that gives us an idea of the local residential neighborhood and the topography in relation to what is being proposed. That being said, if you just pop that down so that we can see what is below it, you can see the proposed berm just south of the proposed pad, and you can see the existing berm. And the existing berm is to the bottom. You see the evergreens, and it also has a stockade fence going through it.
Where would the new berm be on the sight line, the red line down on the bottom?
7, 8 dots up there.
Yeah, but is that a view?
In the cross
sideways
section, it's just
view?
point to it in the cross section.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it'd be right there.
And this, the viewpoint is from it's sort of like a first floor.
Yeah.
Yep, level, and then it goes up the hill, and there's still the berm on top of that.
We actually drew that red line on the second floor.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So with that, I leave it up to the board. I think that the berm could be enhanced. It could also be elongated to meet the existing berm. That being said, if it may not be necessary, it is up to the board.
The only thing I would,
Make a hook to the south and connect it.
yeah, I would suggest that if we, this gave me a bit of a heartache, seeing it this way, and then when you look at the grading plan, the grading plan actually makes more sense in terms of, if you overlay the two, which I did, they fall right on top of one another, and it does simplify to this shape. But what I would think is perhaps we could kind of elongate and turn a little bit more to the south on that berm, and maybe give it a little more elevation on the front side, you know. Because I don't care what the dumpsters look at, but I do care what the neighbors look at. And if you gained a little bit of elevation on the downhill side and maybe staggered your trees a little bit, it might enhance that view. And I'd rather not see you move too far, much farther to the south, because I don't want you increasing your limits of disturbance. So, but I think you can accomplish it all within the footprint you got.
One of the things we're being sensitive to is, you know, we can do this, we can hook it this way a little bit, sorry, thanks, Doug. We can hook a little farther to the south, but yeah, we're being sensitive to not wanting to clear vegetation to plant vegetation.
No,
Yes.
understood,
And,
yes.
and we'll strike that balance.
And like I said, graphically, it looks a little stark the way they have it here, but
Yeah.
if you superimpose it on the grading plan and you see where the berm is, it actually makes a lot of sense. And
Okay.
it took me a while to get to that, but, so that's why I think if you kind of played with that grading a little bit, and it seems like you got enough soil to do that, you could enhance that berm a little bit.
I would also ask, because they are identified on the plan, you call out a handful, maybe like 3 to 5 mature trees that'll be removed as a part of the application. Do you have any information on the size or species or any additional information on those?
We'll put that to you in a supplemental.
Just as a curiosity, it may be a consideration to the board for supplementary planting for the removed trees, depending on the size and the species of them.
Okay.
Just for the benefit of the board, to Malcolm's comments, there are no new employees that will be, you know, on site to that extent, but we'll put that all in writing so you have it for the benefit of the record. But that's why no additional parking is going to be here, and we're already over-parked, I think, as Malcolm mentioned, for the use based on the code requirements.
I think the parking requirement based on the
7.
number of employees and square footage is like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And they've got 27
Twice that, yeah.
parking spaces for employees, not to mention
Right.
storage for trucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right.
My last comment is seeker. You already nailed it. It is an unlisted action, a relatively simple one, though. There's some tree clearing. There's some disturbance. There'll definitely be DEC involvement. I didn't clock it though. There's no SHPO. There's no archaeological sensitivities. So I leave it up to the board. I don't necessarily, this is not a highly complicated unlisted action that would require a coordinated review, but it is possible. But I would recommend an uncoordinated review and for us to conduct our own seeker.
Just do our own and be done with it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, so make a motion that we proceed as a uncoordinated review on the project. Somebody wants to make a
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
Okay, motion's made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so that takes care of that issue. I know there was talk, I'm just curious about one thing that just popped up into my head here. It was the water. I guess you're, talking about washing out the, the containers. Where are you going to get the water from? Because there is an existing well there, so is it coming off of that, or is it putting a new well onto the property?
No, we're gonna use the existing well, What we'll probably have to do is run a line from the building back up. There is a water service line that comes from that well down into the existing building.
Yep.
So we'll need to drop a new line in coming back up the hill so we can feed off the pressure tank in the building likely, but we have a yard hydrant proposed.
Okay.
Right next to the asphalt pad.
They actually have to adjust the elevation of the water line in order to construct their new road to maintain the necessary cover, because they're actually cutting along the route. So they're going to they're going to repipe the well for a large percentage anyway. So they're going to have to, they'll figure out a way to get the water up there.
Okay, yeah. But also, it should be shown too on the plan that they are using the water from there.
Yes.
Supplying it up the hill.
Do they need like an oil separator on their drains there or anything? I mean,
In terms of their stormwater, that's still up in the air. Depending upon what their proposal is for this power washing, there probably needs to be some type of settlement chamber, floatables separation chamber. They might have to slope and pitch the wash area to a center drain, let their water go in there, and then out to the stormwater. I think that's all a detail they have to work out, but that would be the direction I would see it heading, and I would suspect they probably need to do some pre-screening. So in other words, if you get a refuse enclosure that somebody threw a bunch of household paint or waste products in it, you're not going to want to wash it out on this site. You're going to probably want to pre-screen it and take it out of service for a while. This I think is more, they're envisioning more household waste that's standard. You've got a little grease, you got a little this, that, and the other thing, but not a lot of anything in any of these enclosures. But since you never know, that's why we need to work out the details now.
Yeah.
So, but I'll leave it to these folks. I imagine they got some concepts.
Yeah. No, and we'll coordinate with Mr. Andrews offline before we come back to make sure we're in agreement with how it fits under the town law and under the stormwater ordinance of both the town and the state.
Okay.
I would chime in that based on my review and yours, that the plans have advanced to a sufficient degree that with the next submission, if the board would like, we can schedule the public hearing for their return visit to the planning board.
Okay. So we'll leave that to the board. Do you guys want to go ahead and schedule a public hearing at this point?
they're
So that would be our,
on this, yeah, okay.
I'm not imagining any substantial
changes to the plan.
Yeah.
All right, other than just a little detail, other than the details that we're talking about.
Yes.
Not that they're some not so little.
Only sensitive to Malcolm and myself, not necessarily the public.
Okay, so when would we be with the time frame? That'd probably be the earliest would be the first meeting in April.
How much time will you need to get your plans together?
To be in line for the,
Well, we have a March 17th, or we could do April 7th.
April 7th.
for the April 7th, yeah, makes the, I wouldn't do it too soon. Okay. All right, so entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing for April the 7th.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right,
you very
so
much.
we will await the submission and we'll schedule the public hearing.
Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, folks, and good evening.
Okay, good evening.
Good night.
Good seeing you.
I think he's trying to run. I know, it's crazy. Did you want to go? Did you want to do this?
So what is the board, you guys, you want to discuss with the attorney procedure prior to going to attorney-client session prior to moving forward?
If you think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Huh?
You think it's necessary? You feel pretty strongly about it, so.
I think it might be a good idea, just to take a quick just to have a brief discussion with him, just to make sure that we're on the right path here. So I'll entertain, somebody wants to make a motion to go into attorney-client session to meet with counsel regarding, actually for advice.
Yeah.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion.
Okay. Motion's made.
I'll
Second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
You're opposed, okay.